just a creature in the night, pulling up my sheets, feeling underneath. Same thing gives me a fright, no better than the beast hiding underneath.
Good evening, I'm Zarganot. Welcome to the studio and me with sore eyes tonight. Don't quite know why, but they are a little bit sore. So my apologies for the late start of the stream. A lot of work to get done before I came home from work, and then I had to make an evening meal. So I've just finished that, come straight here. So my apologies, but we will get straight on with doing some more work on this. Lots more grass, I'm afraid. It's also, although we're not going to be colouring it green anymore, Lady Zara has spoken. Lady Zara's taken a look and decided that she actually prefers this without the green. And I have I realised that I've actually got this grass here in the wrong place. It needs to be behind here a little bit. And it's going to be interesting because I can't put it behind this grass, so I'm possibly going to have to sort of just tease it in. So sort of put it in and then go over this area again, just working my way down to put the grass in front. See how it looks. Sometimes it won't matter, and we'll see. I realised having a look at it that it kind of looked odd with the grass stopping there. It need it to go behind to ground it properly, so that's what we're doing now. Excuse me, just had a hair in my mouth. Quite why there's a hair there. You might have expected a rabbit, perhaps. I don't know. I've just noticed something that I want to just fix. I shall just be off camera in a moment, and I shall be back in a second. There we go. All fixed. Right. Back to grass. As I mentioned before, I'm just rocking the tool a little bit as I do this. Which causes you to get slices or lines in, say slices because this is a knife, it's quite sharp, in slightly different directions, so you get a slight random direction, and it tends to make the area fill in a little bit better and stops this sort of perfect, everything being perfectly vertical effect. Which even with trying to do this fairly randomly can lead to sort of banding and other effects that you don't really want. Now making sure I go over the bottom of the grass lines that I put above, so there's always an overlap, and I'm trying not to do perfectly straight lines across. I am, trying to vary it somewhat. So that because if I went across in straight lines I would get banding. I don't know if you see like a band across there, which is something I'll have to just tease out a little bit like that. And there's another one here. Which I might, not too bad. Now even if you're doing something like hair, cat hair, dog hair, you still want a little bit of randomness, even though most of the hair would go in quite long strokes, and you can do quite long strokes, but you do want a little bit of randomness, because if you try and do long strokes, unless you're doing representative fur, which is like the odd clump mark, then if you try doing this, you're unlikely to be able to closely deliver lines which are very close to each other, don't touch each other, but fill in the space. I mean, you can do it. Experience, practice, time, you can do it. But it can change something like a 20-hour picture into 40, 60 hours if you try and do that. Very slight randomness in where you move the pen, if you like, can sort of make it look like everything's in roughly the same direction. And yet fills in the space in between. Part of that is because any one stroke that I put down isn't the complete story. It's quite light, and a subsequent one over the top darkens it down. and the crisscrossing sort of just adds to the slight variations in tone that you're getting. Okay, this wood is being a little bit contrary. Just right here it's changing colour really quickly, which is why it looks darker. Just a little bit further out and it's getting really reluctant to change colour. You can see the, well, part of the original line there. That's better. And that's rather light just around there. That's not so bad. You kind of walk down there anyway. So now what we do now is carry on. Carry on with more. More is more. Now here, over there, I was just touching the pen down. Here I'm stroking a little bit, really just creating longer strands of the grass. This is closer to you, so it would be larger. Whether they'd be this large, I don't know. And can you see that they're this large? Not really. But just on the off chance that there's something about it that, you know, makes it look right, I'm carrying on doing fairly large grass strokes as opposed to little tiny dabs. I think this might need a clean. A little bit, not much. To clean the nib in this particular case, all I've just done is wipe it on some kitchen paper. Yes, that's paper. It does not set the paper on fire, because this pen isn't hot enough to do that. And was it 451 Fahrenheit that paper sets on fire? Only reason I'm thinking of that is because of the film, or the book, Fahrenheit 451 I think it was, which was about a dystopian future where books are banned and firemen go around setting fire to books, burning books. And the temperature at which books burn is the temperature of paper. Paper burns 451. Unless of course I've mixed up that reference, but I think that's right. This is only up something like a couple of 100 degrees. Nowhere near hot enough to burn paper or to set paper alight. You can apply pyrography to paper, and indeed I started a leopard on stream once on paper. I'll maybe get round to doing some more on it when this is finished, because I don't think I'll be ready to start glass work just yet. It's coming soon, just not yet. And by soon I mean real soon. Hopefully within something like a couple of weeks. Just waiting for the glass studio to be completed, and then we can potentially start to move in. Although having said which, I don't have yet a streaming computer to use. But we're working on that one. I just need to reinstall some servers that are currently running on a computer to run on another computer. And then the computer that they're currently running on will be available hopefully for me to use as a streaming computer, which I hope works under Linux quite well. I've not tried OBS under Linux. I'm hoping this machine will be powerful enough to do that successfully, because I don't really want to buy a Windows license for it. Now then, this might look like a boring kind of job. Potentially it could be, I guess, but I don't find it so. I mean, it is part of the art, is doing things like this. And quite often what will happen when I'm off stream, certainly, is I kind of just zone out. I mean, kind of enjoying what I'm doing without really thinking about it, which I have to sort of potentially learn today. Could be a form of hypnosis. Amazing what you get to learn sometimes. Because when you're doing this, you don't necessarily actually even realise what you're doing. You just do it, and your brain sort of works on something else. I will stop for a moment, just shortly, because this pen, my finger actually on this pen, is getting really rather hot. The pen itself isn't, so it's just the heat that's coming up off the tip, which is actually turned way down. This particular tip doesn't need a lot of heat. Oh, my eyes are sore. And one thing I don't have anymore, because I don't wear contact lenses anymore, is I don't have any artificial tears, which would be good at this moment in time, just to wet my eyes. Although they are quite damp, but the tears seem to do a better job. Right, so I shall attempt to carry on. My fingers cool down a little bit, so let's try and move over this way a little bit, so we're more centre framed. So, grass. Always a difficult thing sometimes. Lots of things like grass can be really difficult to represent. And you've got all sorts of choices about how you do it. And that also depends on your style. Even within sort of one generic style of pyrography, which would be like this one is, which is photorealistic, there's still all sorts of different styles of the way people would represent things like grass. I mean, some artists, for example, would use a single solid colour. Some would do that, but maybe put the odd grass strand in. Some would use sort of varied colour. Me, I kind of put grass stalks in and individual grass blades of grass in. Whilst it's really time consuming to do, I do think it gives a better grass-like image. Because of that, that's why I sort of am happy to take the time, the extra time it takes to do this, because I think the outcome is worth the time. Trying really hard to be random, which is really hard to do. the more random, the better the thing will look. So trying to avoid any form of straight lines, and that may well be lines where I start and stop at the same point all the way along, or I just do a lot of the same pattern, or it's really important to be as random as possible for things like this. You don't get grass with all the leaves of grass perfectly vertical stood next to each other. Some fall over, some are shorter than others. I mean, even on the archetypal bowling green lawn where you see the stripes, because the grass is laid slightly to one side or the other, and so you're seeing sort of light reflected off it in different ways, which is why you see the stripes. It's been rolled and rolled in opposite directions. So I'm now starting to think, nothing to do with this picture, but I'm now starting to think about the initial kit that I want to buy and things that I need to buy to start the glass work. And I mean, might sound obvious, but gas is one of the things that I kind of haven't been thinking about. Propane gas, I need to be able to buy some and be able to potentially know where to refill it. But just odd things like that, you kind of slip your mind altogether. It would look kind of silly, wouldn't it? I get everything in place, come to light the torch, and there's nothing on the other end of the pipe. No gas supply. I mean, you kind of realise before then, because you've got to put you'd have to put the pipe on the cylinder, otherwise it'd be obvious why it wasn't working. And at that point you go, oops, no cylinder. But also sort of looking at things like oxygen prices. Well, I'll be making oxygen, I think, with a oxy concentrator. UK oxygen prices not cheap, and cylinders would not appear to last very long if my calculations are anything like right. Now I wouldn't be potentially, so I worked it out at. I think it was something like I'd need a new cylinder about once a month if I ran a torch continuously for like 3 hours a night or something. And that's with kind of some of the biggest general cylinders available in the UK. And things like cryo storage is definitely not on the cards for the UK. Much too expensive. So more lines. So he's looking a bit light just here, so going back over it a little bit, slowed right down so that I get darker lines. Again, a patch of wood that just didn't and doesn't want to take a colour. You get that. It feels, with a tool like this particular one, which is a knife blade, it just doesn't feel like it cuts into the surface of the wood. The wood's too hard. And it actually makes the pyrography paler as well. In that particular case, clearly the softness of the wood or the water content or whatever I forgot where that thought was going. The lighter the colour, the less water, the harder the wood. Yeah, that's probably where the thought was going. Now I've got to be careful I don't get crisscross diamonds, because that's kind of what was starting to look like there. Now this blade is rounded, so I can actually push away. And strictly speaking, if I'm doing grass, that's kind of what I should be doing, is pushing up and away. I'm not, but that's kind of what I should be doing. The nice thing about this blade is it kind of works in any direction, so I can push or I can pull. Now, because there's no blobs involved or anything else, I can really work this grass from either side. I can either work it sort of tip to root, or I can go root to tip, which is the way I'm doing it at the moment. That is assuming you haven't inverted the camera and played camera tricks on you, which I haven't. Now, one of the things you really do have to be careful of is if I come down here, I don't end up just dropping into the same slots that I've created above, and therefore just extending the line without actually putting another layer of grass in. I just made the grass taller, or the ground less tall, depending on the point of view you're looking at it from. So when you extend, you tend to extend, or I tend to extend by using a different angle on the pen, so I cross the lines I've put down rather than extending them. Okay, that's 1,476,246 done. Only another 465,192 to go. Of course, I'm joking. I haven't counted them. I'm not going to count them, but it kind of feels like that. Right, Onwards and downwards, to paraphrase a paraphrase, I guess. It can be quite hard not to drop back into the same slot as well, even when you are dragging down. If it does end up getting really hard, you can start at the bottom and come up. It's just a little bit more challenging to use. And I'm not as practiced, so I'm actually slower than if I had. This pen is in a little bit, it just feels a little bit cool. So I turn it up a bit. It could just be this area of the wood. I mean, I know I've already discovered several areas of the wood where the colour just does not take very easily. And of course I'm quite tired, so this in itself is tending to sort of make me a little bit sort of hypnotized, just from the point of view of I sort of am just doing this with, or was at various points, like I just realized, doing this without real conscious thought. You know, I'd have been doing it right, I would have been keeping lines in the right places, etc. I just wasn't thinking about it. Hypnotism has kind of interested me for some time, as to the way it works. I have got course material for hypnotism, but I haven't read it yet. We're seeing some banding a little bit. Must be something to do with the wood, I think. Now, when you look at that, it's kind of amazing how it looks to have sort of sunlight and shadows on it, or different colours of grass. In fact, you may even be seeing something that looks a bit like green grass. There's nothing green on this board, but I half suspect you'll be seeing that. And it's not a trick of the camera either, it's a trick of your eyes. Partly because you're expecting grass to be green, and I suspect that's got something to do with it. I don't actually know why, but that's kind of a suspicion. You know, you're expecting it to be something, so therefore that's what you see it as. In some ways it looks a bit like, some of this looks a bit like small tiny bushes. On the camera at least. Here in person it doesn't, but that's sort of an illusion being caused by the camera. If you are sort of seeing like small bushes, quite sort of heather type moorland sort of look, then that's pure optical illusion, either from the camera resolution or the way it's processing the image. Plus I suspect that the resolution of the camera, it's a 1080p camera, isn't enough to capture all these small lines, so it's kind of clumping a number of them together, and it's just looking at sort of broad light and dark areas. I suppose it is possible that some of these lines are repetitious to the effect where they actually cause... No. If this was an analog TV, I could have completed that sentence where they actually cause the colour burst to an apparent colour burst to occur. But that's this is digital. That's not the reason. So maybe in the future, if I ever get talking to a neurologist or some form of physical scientist or whatever, maybe I'll ask them the question. In the meantime, I will remain in ignorance. Right, I was expecting maybe to be able to finish this image tonight. I don't think that's going to happen. Just because of the time that's been taken on these hard patches. And it's probably part of the laminate that's doing it. I can see sort of join marks here, or possibly rings. Probably more the tree rings, and the hard and soft places probably have got something to do with that, the tree rings. So the soft places may be where the sap is carried, for example, and the hard bits around hold the tree up and protect the soft bits. More tea time, and wake up a little bit time. It's getting there. Probably going to have to put something maybe around the back, not actually something, but maybe a colour of some kind, a tone rather than a colour. So a very pale, pyrography, because it's too white. I think we need to knock it back a little bit. Half past 8. No, there's no way. I don't think that we're going to finish this tonight. You never know though. It's possible, but I doubt it. Well, certainly, I mean, finish the grass, because if I'm going to do a colour around the back, even with the largest shader I've got, which I haven't got out, that will take quite a little bit of time. Not as much as this, but for the background I kind of would want it reasonably smooth, and that takes care and time. Just covering it will take time. So we now broke it down into another small spot. And now fill in this space. And we're getting closer to the end. So you sort of, sometimes doing stuff like this is playing games as you go along, like, breaking this out like this. So it's a small block that's sort of totally surrounded, and then you just fill it in, you know, you can almost doodle with it. Because it really also depends on what you're filling it with. Certain things you wouldn't doodle, you know, you wouldn't do this doodling with, because it just would not, it would spoil the finish. And you notice I'm only doing grass. I'm not doodling as in I'm drawing a shape and then expecting to put grass over the top of it and hide it. It won't hide it. So if the app doesn't let you use or whatever, doesn't let you erase, then in real life you can't erase. I have no idea where that thought came from or what it was I was talking about. It can get quite surprising sometimes just how quickly you can get through things. I mean, such as this. Not so long ago we just filled in this little bit on this edge and it looked like there was quite a large space to fill in. Now, as you can see, we're down to a lot smaller space. And very quickly now this space is going to disappear. Having said, you know, not so long ago that they can take ages, this one will disappear fairly quickly, and of course the smaller I make it, the quicker it will disappear. Kind of obvious, I guess, but it's when you've got used to not seeing the thing disappear, even if people have tried, is because what? I'm half asleep tonight. Really am. I don't know why it is when you're trying not to go into the same line that you've just created, that quite often that's precisely what you do. You end up dropping directly into the very line you've just come out of, thus sort of reinforcing, you know, applying more pyrography to the same area again, making it darker. It's almost as though there's sort of an attraction into the little grooves that you've already created. Part of the reason why I am tipping and rolling the pen as I work. And that's another bit done. Now for more tea. Don't know why just recently I'm more interested in tea than coffee. I like coffee. I think maybe some of it's got to do with they changed the must be about 6 months, 9 months ago now. They changed the formula on the coffee that I liked. I used to drink Nescafe Gold Blend, I mean I still do. They've changed the formula a little bit, or how they make it a little bit, and now when you always end up with sort of like dregs of coffee in the bottom, which is kind of unpleasant. And I kind of, since then, I really felt I don't really drink coffee all that often these days. Okay, go away, watercolour. So I've just turned the heat up a little bit. There's a bit of the wood around here. It's quite hard, not colouring very well at all, so I'm using more heat as an assistance. Do have to be more careful though that I don't get really dark marks, because I'm now sort of working hotter. See what this reminds me of a little bit, the picture that you're seeing, and that is if you imagined a computer game and this was maybe bushes down in the distance and a bit of the mesh is missing, and so what you're seeing is sort of maybe the water. Yes, this was kind of like bushes around a lake and the mesh for the water is missing. It looks just like that sort of thing. So we better go carry on and fill in the missing mesh. Now, I guess what I could have done with this, well, it is a repetitive task, and for some people it would get a bit much. One of the things I perhaps should have done is, once I got the outline of the shed, was do a bit of this and do some of the shed, do a bit more and do some of the shed, rather than kind of leaving it all until the last thing. That way then I'd have got 90% of it done, and finishing it off would have been really quick, and you wouldn't really have noticed that you'd spent all this time doing grass, because it would just sort of slot it in amongst other things. But hindsight is fantastic. It's very easy to look back. You got perfect vision and go, yeah, well, maybe that wasn't such a good idea, or maybe this would have been better. The trick, of course, is the next time you do something like this, is then to remember those tricks or those things and go, you know what? There's a lot of grass or there's a lot of fur here. Let me do a bit and do something else and come back to it. Now, decided mark across there, you can see it, I can see it, you can see it, you don't see it as much as I do, but there's a lighter area there, which is literally the underlying grain of the wood, the underlying wood structure. There's a knot hole type thing here, and that's a harder piece of wood. This is softer, which is why it's darker. Softer wood takes colour a lot quicker than harder wood. Maybe because part of the reason why wood is softer is because it's got a higher moisture content, That may or may not be true, but feels like it could be. It certainly would be an explanation. And of course, if there's more moisture content, there's more stuff to cook, and therefore turn brown. I mean, I find it fascinating in a way. I mean, I'm not hanging about with this tool. I mean, I'm not going at absolutely rocket speed, but I'm not hanging about. And the brown mark, which, you know, you're cooking the wood, is kind of like staying up with the pen. I'm not getting it sort of undercoloured or anything, and yet it's very light. There's ink streaming out the bottom of this pen. There isn't, but it's kind of like that when you're using it. I've experienced that with a couple of other pens as well, where I think one of them is the flat shader, where, you know, the colour literally seems to come from out of the pen. Not because of the pen, but actually coming out of it like a paintbrush. And here we are, coming up on finishing up another patch. At which point I may stop. The slight vapour that is coming off here isn't doing my eyes any good. Now I know we started a late, well, quite a bit late really, but I have other things that I need to get on with this evening, so I'm not going to be able to go on much further past my normal time. Maybe when we start working with the glass, might have more opportunity, with a bit of luck, to be able to do longer streams. Now working on the edge, got to be kind of really careful, because it will go dark really quickly. I don't know why the edges always do, but I'm working faster off the edge here, because it will actually very easily go dark. It may well be because of course the amount of wood is half what it would be, because the other half is off the, you know, not there, and therefore the heat is going into a smaller area. That's a theory. Whether it's true, don't know. Ow. So there's some more. Still got that to do, but we're getting there. The grass is almost finished. Then the next thing, yeah, I think we'll be applying using one of the big shaders, something like this one, just a really pale colour around the back. It's too white at the moment. It needs something there just to knock that white off. So it maybe looks like a, you know, there's a grey sky behind it or something. At the moment it's a bright white sky, and you kind of, it's almost That doesn't work. That probably needs to come across. It doesn't work. It's not quite. The expectation's wrong. Maybe up here somewhere, come across. The kind of expectation is wrong. I was kind of looking at this, and I'm looking at the picture that you're seeing, and it sort of is a bit like moorland. I mean, it's grass here, but on the picture that you're looking at, it's a bit like moorland, and you sort of misty background, perhaps. So grey mist. It's something, you know, just stood in the middle of 1,000 acres of moorland, and nothing near it for the next 10 miles. Of course, it's in my back garden here, but you can sort of make up any story about some of these things. Excuse me. So we'll finish that bit off on the next stream. Put in a background. So we should be able to finish that on the next stream. Whether we'll get the whole background in, don't know. These sort of things do take quite a bit longer sometimes than you might think. It doesn't look like it's a particularly difficult task, and it isn't really a particularly difficult task to fill that background in. But to do it with a smooth, consistent colour, and does slow it down a bit. But there is actually a heck of a large area there. There's probably about a third of an A4 board, you know. And again, that kind of doesn't look very much. But if you were to try and take a pencil and use the point of a pencil and colour it all in, you'd sort of see how long it sort of takes to do some of these things. But even though I'm going to be using like the side of a pencil, but I've got to keep it smooth. Anyway, I'm starting to ramble. I'm going to stop at this point. In fact, I'm going to turn that off. I'm also going to change glasses. Put my normal glasses on so I can see a bit better. Well, when I'm looking at things. These are reading glasses, so are these, but these are the newer prescription. I can see better out of them. I said I'm going to stop it at that point. We'll finish this on the next stream. The next stream is on Friday, 7 PM UK time. That's 1800 hours GMT. If you would like to see any of the earlier videos, because they have been videoed of these, Twitch has got 2 or 3 available. Anything up to 5, I think. And if it's no longer available on Twitch, it is available on YouTube. youtube.com/SarahGannart. If you'd like to see this live again on Friday, then please follow the channel. And if you'd like, follow me on Twitter as well. It's @SarahGannart. I tweet when I go live, so it's an alternative method of notification if you forgot to push the little bell on here. Do you get bells on here, or is it on YouTube? Can't remember now. But if you're not following, then you don't get the notification, of course. And if you'd like to support the stream, there's the other 2 buttons at the top right there, which go towards the things that we need for the stream. Materials, cameras. It would be nice to have another camera, for example. Or when we start with the glass work, things like lenses, so you can see what's going on, the titanium lenses, which are not necessarily cheap, these sorts of things, all go towards that. So I'm going to say thank you for watching. Hope I'll see you on the next stream. Bye for now.